And after this special session, let's now hop across to a plenary session here at Jasmine, Geo World Convention Center. And this is on CVO. All these years, when we talked about the C-band executive, we heard CEO, COO, CFO, but over the last few years, we've also been hearing about CVO. So what is a Chief Value Officer? And given the fact that CFOs, CEOs are uniquely placed to mainstream sustainability and focus their organizations on optimizing and protecting enterprise and stakeholder value, let's understand how we can champion an integrated mindset to drive sustainable value creation. I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Sanjay Rughani, Chair, IFAC PAIB Advisory Group. That's the Professional Accountants in Business Advisory Group, and CEO and Managing Director, Standard Chartered Bank, Uganda. Thank you very much. With State Bank of India. Kindly. Thank you very much. Welcome once again. It's over to Mr. Sanjay Rughani from here on. Thank you.
नमस्कार मुंबई वाले कैसे हो सब ठीक है So my name is Sanjay Rughani, and as you saw, I am the CEO for Standard Chartered Bank in Uganda. I'm actually a Tanzanian, so it's a pleasure for me to be talking a little bit of the Desi language, as they say. But this place has been very special. You know, we've been here for a few days, and I would like to congratulate clearly the ICI team, the World Congress team. It's been an exceptional experience. So from my side, bahut sara dhanyabad aur shukriya. Well, as you know, this is a plenary session, and we are very privileged to have some very august speakers with ourselves today. And the session, as you can see, is really about, championing a bigger cause, which is very important. So from my perspective, I think there's never been a better time in this world than now for the CFO. Why do I say this? I think it's very clear that the world has got a lot of challenges. The world is looking for a trusted partner. In a world where things are very chaotic, there's actually a big storm around us on everything that could be going wrong is going wrong. So there's of course the pandemic, the war, but more importantly, there's big transformations around climate, digital, supply chain has its own issues, and we'll hear some of my colleagues talking about it today. This is a fantastic time for the CFOs to lead the way. Why do I say this? I think it's a good opportunity for us to say, becoming from a chief finance officer to a chief value officer. For centuries, the CFOs have been known to really, to deal with value protection for the organization. I think the pendulum has to shift much more towards value creation because we are one of those unique functions that understand business end to end. I know that in India we have more than 1 billion people and maybe 500-600 million people talk Hindi. But I can tell you there is only one language of business in the world, and that is accountancy. See how powerful we are if we use our language to really change the world completely. I'm told in the world, and some of my colleagues may have better opinions, there are more than 200 million businesses. And there's only 3.5 million accountants. So I think the challenge on us is really to grow the number of accountants, but also to create value. So what is important as we look at the future, and I know in the last few days we've had a lot of deliberations, so it's really looking at the whole area of sustainability and how CFOs can play a much bigger role. The whole area of ESG, where we are going to be, clearly the game changer in this context. Digital, the World Economic Forum said that finance can be digitized 68% so that finance function and the CFOs themselves can move into much more value creation. We have a very, very fantastic panel here, but we are going to start with someone who doesn't need a lot of introduction when it comes to India. So I have the single privilege to call upon stage CA Sanjiv Mehta, who is the CEO and Managing Director of Hindustan Liver Limited. Sir, आपको तो सब लोग जानते हैं. शुक्रिया.
Namaskar and good afternoon. As a proud member of ICAI, I'm delighted that the World Congress of Accountants is being held in my country. And on behalf of all Indians, to all people who have come from abroad, a very special welcome to you. Businesses and corporations evolve in tandem with the expectations of the society. In today's context, there are many themes which are at an inflection point. Leadership for the future, digital, sustainability. And I'm extremely delighted to share my thoughts on a very interesting subject, which is championing an integrated mindset to drive sustainable value creation. We live in a world where volatility and uncertainty have become commonplace. The pandemic has shown the fragility of our ecosystem and its rippling effect across the world. Loss of lives, livelihoods, economic hardship, social inequality is on the rise. An estimated 70 million people have been pushed into extreme poverty. This is not the first and will not be the last crisis that humanity experiences. Years of abuse and unsustainable consumption have ravaged nature and adversely impacted climate, leading to depletion of biodiversity and a high risk of zoonotic diseases. Climate change by far is the biggest concern looming over humanity, and the cost of inaction will exceed the cost of action. The only way to avoid the worst possible climate outcome is to accelerate our efforts now and stop procrastinating. Individuals, organizations, and governments have started to make progress in battling the climate crisis. As world leaders commit to reducing the carbon intensity, aiming for net zero and improving the ESG governance, India too has set sustainability stretching targets for itself. We are committed to reducing the emission intensity of our GDP by 45% compared to the 2005 levels by 2030 and achieve about 50% cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy resources by 2030. All this are going to take trillions of dollars as we move towards Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi's commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. Now, for any business to survive and thrive, the focus must always be on a multi-stakeholder model. We need to look at from a different vantage point and over a different horizon. I think it was Churchill who said, the inherent vice of capitalism is the unequal sharing of blessings. The inherent virtue of socialism is the equal sharing of miseries. We must share the blessings of capitalism in a much more equitable way to take away the miseries of the society and collectively win. The world needs growth, and so do businesses. And this growth needs to be good for all: consumers, communities, the economy, the planet, and the shareholders. Businesses need to create value not just for shareholders, but for every stakeholder across the value chain. Stakeholder capitalism is about the values of the company and the way it operates to reflect the interests of multiple stakeholders all the time. In the aftermath of the pandemic, boards and executive leadership of all organizations are looking at reinventing the business models, building resilience, and optimizing resource dependencies. In response to these evolving demands, businesses are increasingly taking steps towards incorporating sustainable business activities and adopting an integrated approach to business strategy and sustainability. At Hindustan Unilever, we have always held the belief that being a responsible, sustainable business makes us stronger and a better business. In fact, we believe it is the only way of doing business. Back in 2010, much before the rest of industry and before sustainability became fashionable, Unilever codified its sustainability strategy in the form of Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. The USLP, as it was called, was one of its kind in terms of scope and ambition. 10 years on, evidence has been clear in our business performance. If we look at, in India, our purpose-led brands have been growing faster than the rest of our portfolio. We have reduced costs from sustainable sourcing and eco-efficiencies. And sustainability has acted as a magnet for talent, making us the #1 employer of choice for several years in a row. The USLP was a game changer and paved the way for Compass, which is a fully integrated sustainable business strategy. At the heart of Compass is a purpose to make sustainable living commonplace, and a stated vision is to be a leader in sustainable business. A purpose-led, future-led business model is a key differentiator which we believe drives superior performance by delivering consistent, competitive, profitable, and responsible growth. Bringing focus to the Compass are time-bound and actionable goals that we are pursuing. It includes the health of the planet, improving people's health, confidence, and well-being, and contributing to a more socially inclusive world. The evolution of business and taking an integrated approach to business strategy is fundamentally altering the role of the CFO and the finance and accounting teams. The chief value architects for any organization they play a pivotal role in building sustainable businesses. CFOs must help the business recognize the opportunities and the risks associated with sustainability and be able to craft a sustainable business model that not only helps achieve better financial returns, but also generate positive value for the planet and the society. Finance's role in sustainability broadly boils down to two key elements: creating value and protecting value. Let me first start by creating value. Sustainability offers huge value potential, and the finance professionals need to lead this agenda and unlock value, focusing on a few key areas. First is ensure sustainability is ingrained in the business strategy. I believe CFOs who champion sustainable business practices and help build an integrated strategic approach across the value chain will help drive better business outcomes and ultimately drive superior financial performance. ESG initiatives cannot be run by a central team. Multiple functions such as supply chain, marketing, procurement, all have to be involved in developing the sustainability plan. And finance teams have a great opportunity in orchestrating this organization-wide process. The second is linking sustainable business performance measurements to value. Finance teams will play a key role in building performance management routines and bringing accountability to sustainability. Like any other business plan, finance teams should set tangible and quantitative performance indicators and hold the relevant teams accountable for delivering results. Third is collaborating across an integrated value chain. Impact of sustainability programs can be significantly amplified by seeking collaboration across the value chain. Forming coalitions with industry peers to find new innovative solutions and advocating policy shifts will be key. Finance can indeed play a key role by being externally focused and helping structure innovative partnerships. The fourth is communicating the story of sustainability. We need to be able to tell the story in a manner that moves consumer preferences towards more sustainable businesses and brands. Now, when it comes to protecting values, I think the important bit for us is to focus on, first, is the ESG risk management. Now it is becoming more evident, from climate change to social inequity, all businesses are facing new kinds of risks. Some of this have a potential to be material and cause financial or reputational damage. ESG is now a strategic risk for organizations that require immediate attention from the CFOs and the risk management function. The second is leading reporting on ESG. CFOs and the teams will need to take a lead in meaningfully improve the company's ESG reporting agenda. This first is within this reporting standards and measurement, bringing in uniformity and standardization of reporting is the most important element in measurement and reporting. Today, there are multiple frameworks, such as the International Sustainability Standards Board, Global Reporting Initiative, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. In India, we have also advanced in this journey and have rolled out the Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report, or BRSR. I strongly believe that with the expertise we have, accountants in India should lead from the front to bring alignment and convergence across reporting frameworks to ensure uniform disclosure methodology for investors and ease the pressure on companies. The second is internal controls and auditing standards. With enhanced sustainability requirements, it is equally important to evolve auditing standards to enable auditors to provide assurance on these areas. Closely linked to this is creating internal control frameworks over non-financial information that will ensure accurate and reliable measurement and reporting. And the third subpart is engagement with investors. Investors and market participants are factoring a range of ESG measures into the investment decision. This calls for an increased engagement from the CFOs and investor relations teams with investors, analysts, and ESG rating agencies to ensure that the sustainability agenda of the company and its progress is well understood. Management of key ESG risk will also be a topic of interest to this stakeholders. The third part of this is building organization-wide capabilities. Many aspects of ESG disclosure are still evolving, and organization understanding of the same might be limited. In fact, the alphabet soup of ESG acronyms, guidelines, and extent of information needs can be overwhelming at first. Finance team needs to first equip themselves to be comfortable with this and then help the larger organization help them. The use of technology for timely and accurate financial reporting is well established. This is something which could also move towards the new disclosure requirements on sustainability. Let me end by reiterating my belief in human ingenuity and a capacity to change. I believe that when humankind decides to change, there is virtually no limit to how fast or how dramatically we can do so. We have the technology, we can create financial capacity, we have the intellect, and we have the visceral instinct to survive. We should embrace this crisis as an opportunity to craft a different and better future together. This is a moment that tests our humanity. It must be met with solidarity. Let us transform our world into one that is fairer, inclusive, and more equitable, greener and more sustainable, healthier and smarter, and very importantly, more adaptable and resilient. And who better than accountants to play an important part in this journey? Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Sanjiv. I think he deserves another round of applause. Now, it was about 2.5 months ago that I got to know that Sanjiv is going to be on the panel today, well, giving us a keynote speech. I don't know how many CEOs are in this room. I am one. But I expect every CEO takes a lot of attention to what Sanjiv said. I hope every CEO has the same trust, the same ambition, and the same aspiration that Sanjiv has to get best value from the CFO or the finance function. You are an absolute role model for the function, sir. Thank you. Now, a little bit about Sanjiv, is really that he's leading the Unilever business for India and South Asia since 2013. Everything he spoke on the podium today is what he follows on a day-to-day basis. And that's how he creates bigger value. So I was asking somebody, what value is Hindustan Lever, what's the valuation at the moment? And I was told that the market capitalization of Hindustan Lever is 78 billion, equal to 69% of the 113 billion market valuation of its parent company. This is, and Unilever here is the best performing business for emerging markets for Unilever. So well done, sir. Now, for someone who comes from Uganda, my country GDP, we are just over 41 million people in Uganda. My country GDP is about $40 billion. So Hindustan Lever, your company is bigger than the GDP of Uganda, just to give you context. Thank you. So I just want to make a few references because I thought some of his comments were very much aligned to what even I was thinking as a CEO. So the whole concept of championing integrated mindset to drive sustainability, as he indicated, is the CFO's job. This is the best time for CFOs to start thinking about business from a perspective of planet, people, prosperity, and then profits. That's how you drive business going forward. There is a need for finance professionals to connect information, people, processes, and as Sanjiv said, multi-stakeholders, very important. So the challenge for CFOs is that, overall, looking at the area of sustainability, integrated mindset, ESG, where do you start? Shuruat kahan se karu main? And I think Sanjiv put it very clearly that you have some very important measures to take. I personally had my top 5, and I could see that most of them were covered by him. So start from strategy, link to value, KPIs, what are your KPIs? Collaboration and partnerships. He also talked about storytelling. Ultimately you have to communicate in human language, not in IFRS, not in GST, but in human language. And then finally, reporting. Now, whilst we were seated behind, he said, there was a discussion we were having. What are we going to talk about on the stage that is going to capture everyone's attention? So Sanjiv said, let's talk about a little bit of cricket, Ukraine, and Bollywood. So I'm going to connect like this. So for the CFOs, just think about the whole area of integrated mindset as the last over for you, the 6 balls, and you have to win. तो आप क्या करोगे? क्योंकि अभी खेल मैदान में है and you are the batsman. I think that is the way we should look at sustainability or integrated mindset. Or if you are in Ukraine and you had the power to stop the war, basically the war of ESG, the war of climate in some sense is much bigger than Ukraine. And the opportunity is in your hands to make a difference. And finally, when it comes to Bollywood, think about yourself as the main actor in the movie of integrated mindset or strategy or sustainability. What would be your role, in the company? And that's how you must think. Now, moving on to my colleagues, maybe just some quick reflections from each of my panelists on what Sanjiv said and what's been their own reflections on really the whole equation of integrated mindset for value creation. So I'm going to start with Bikash. Bikash Prasad is the CFO of Olam Agriculture, based out of Dubai, but this is Olam Agriculture Global. I've known Bikash for over 20 years, actually, and he's a phenomenal champion. So Bikash, what's different about you? What's been your experience, and how do you take this forward? Over to you.
So first of all, many congratulations to IFAC and ICAI for organizing this wonderful event. I was told that this World Congress has recorded the maximum number of participation and attendees. So I think the organizing committee of ICAI and entire IFAC team deserves a round of applause for the wonderful event that they have organized. And each of us had the opportunity to experience that. So if I look at it from the finance perspective, what has happened over the last decade or so, till the last decade, finance function has mainly played 2 roles in terms of value reporting and value protection. If you have to relate to what role exactly it is in terms of value reporting and value protection, you can say it was more like a controllership role, where each of the finance function or the CFO role was to ensure that we keep our organization safe from all the controllable losses, from the balance sheet risk. We keep the organization safe from any reputational losses against any of the statutory rules, policies, governance that is there. The second role was more about the performance manager, where the CFOs were supposed to keep the organization on track against all its plan, be it profitability plan or returns plan or working capital, fixed capital, operating cost or cash flows. These were broadly these 2 roles. And if you go to the genesis of why these 2 roles were mainly played, probably I will say a decade earlier, majority of the fair value of the organizations were sitting on the tangible assets in the balance sheet. So the expectation was that you manage the tangible assets very well and then keep the organization safe and on track. However, during the last decade or so, we have seen certain trends or certain changes that has happened. The first one is the emergence of digital, which is disrupting the market. The second, VUCA has become a norm than exceptions. So volatility has become a norm than exceptions, and each of us have now embedded VUCA as part of our business model. We have seen increased competitiveness in the domestic and the international market, and at the same time, there is a huge expectations and requirement from the investors, from the regulators, from the government towards ESG and sustainability. So these changing trends have required the CFO's function to look at the value creation. And for the value creation, they are expected to play two key roles. The first is like a co-pilot or co-strategist, where you work very closely with the business team to drive the growth of the business, to make the businesses resilient, to keep it safe against all these changes, disruption that is happening, to grow the margins, the market share, and at the same time, build the capabilities on sustainability as a competitive advantage. And the next expectation is on how do we independently create value for the organization. All the other roles that I have talked about, it's very difficult to measure the impact in the P&L, while now the organizations are expecting that we should create independent value which is measurable by reducing the tax rate or by managing the cost of capital, looking at the financing mix, looking at the currency management, looking at corporate restructuring or private placement or IPOs to unlock shareholders' value. So the expectations have significantly changed, I will say, over the last decade or so. So CFO function is focusing more on value creation while not compromising on the value reporting and value protection.
Thank you very much. Good. I move to my dear friend Rachel, who is actually the CFO of Challenger Limited, but also, as we know, the past president of IFAC. Rachel, what's been your experience?
Thank you, Sanjay, and good afternoon, everyone. In my experience with sustainability as a CFO, I think in just the recent years, it's been really important to bring the sustainability report together with the annual report. Previously, it was just on the side. And I really believe that the CFO is there to help educate the board, senior management, and everyone in the business. And by bringing that report together, it's really united the company with a key focus to go forward. And that's really important. And I think, you know, as my learned colleague here said, the alphabet soup, we're making it a little bit hard with all the acronyms. So let's help educate everybody and bring forward the opportunities that will come. I think one of the issues, though, in doing this is the short-termism that the capital markets demand versus the longer-term nature as we head to 2030 targets. And so we've got to have that balance of the good and the great as we go forward, and we need to balance that piece. I think that it's important for the board to understand if we are entering into offsets with carbon credits, etc., just exactly what we are investing in. Often we just look and say we've got that and it's a tick in the box. But when you pull it all apart, it's important to understand exactly what those investments are and are they really helping the globe? And, you know, is it just too far away? So that cost benefit's a really important thing to understand and to look at, and I encourage you to really dig deep before entering into those contracts. I believe, though, that this sustainability piece we must grab hold of as a profession. With the Sustainability Standard Setting Board being established and the 2 exposure drafts there, we must grab this and not let it go, because it will be about data, and accountants are great at data and data analytics, and we need to own it and not let that go. But at the same time, we must ensure that our ethics standards are keeping pace, because I think there'll be enormous pressure on a lot of organisations as they have to present how they're progressing in terms of their footprint being reduced. So we need to look at that, understand the pressure on boards, management and the CFO if we are going to be that Chief Value Officer. And finally, what's really pleasing is that I believe that our stance as a profession on sustainability standards has attracted new people to our profession that may not have otherwise considered accounting as their profession for life. And we need to encourage those young people, and we need to build our own skills up more as well. So I think it's an exciting time for accountants. As Sanjay said, I think there's never been a better time to be a CFO. We have such a broad mandate, and we can really make a change.
Thank you, Rachel. Great. We now move on to Raj Mullick, who is the Chief Accounts Officer and Senior Vice President of Reliance. But Raj, before you respond, my understanding, and we just also heard what Honorable Modi is doing, India is at the forefront of sustainability, digital transformation, great growth ambitions. So balancing the equation is very difficult. And we know that in this country what Reliance industry means. We also had the privilege sometimes back to talk to your colleague Rakesh Agarwal, and he says we have a simple philosophy. When you create value for the society, you become valuable. How do you drive that kind of passion in Reliance industry, and what's been your own experience?
Thanks, Sanjay. In Reliance, we believe what's good for India is good for Reliance. And I would always like to tell you that Reliance have been always a trusted partner in the development of nation. And since Sanjiv spoke about sports, cricket, I am tempted to use something of cricket because, you know, cricket is something that binds this nation together. Reliance always have been a very trusted batsman who anchored the innings till the victory. So that is the part that Reliance plays for Team India and India Inc. If we speak of India and if we speak of Prime Minister's commitment and India's commitment, the three main commitments that we have: net zero by 2070, 500 gigawatt of solar energy by 2030, and a leadership position in hydrogen economy in the whole world. If I have to link our goals or relate our goals, Reliance goals, to India goals, our target of net zero is 2035, so much more ambitious than the countries. Our target of renewable energy, solar energy generation is 100 gigawatts. That is roughly, by 2030, that is roughly 20% of the target of the country. And for hydrogen generations, let me tell you about the 5 gigafactories that we are building. We are building in our Jamnagar with an investment of around 10 billion US dollars in the next 3 years. So one of the factory will be building electrodes that will help us to generate hydrogen, low-cost hydrogen, cost-efficient manner. The second factory would be to generate hydrogen out of those electrodes. Third is batteries. And fourth is solar voltaic panels. And the fifth one is electronic equipments for storage and transition of these facilities. So Reliance is here to change the landscape, energy landscape of India, help India to change the energy landscape. 2025 would be a very important year for all of us, because by 2025 we'll be starting to produce around 20 gigawatt of solar power for internal use, and then we'll ramp up to 2030, and we'll also possibly start generating our green hydrogen. So that would be a very important year for all of us. So this is how Reliance plans to contribute to India, and always been a very trusted partner for our country. Thanks.
Thank you. I think in the few words that Raj spoke, there's a lot of wisdom. You know, many of us as CFOs and finance professionals, we work in a company or in a firm. What is unique about Reliance and certainly Hindustan Lever and Olam, and we'll get to SBI, and what Rachel does at Challenger is, in their organization, leadership is you don't work in the company, you work on the company, which means you now know what is your influence and impact on the company on the whole. But what I hear from Reliance, you are not living in the country, you are working on the country. You're creating bigger wealth. And that should be our philosophy. Thanks. So we now go on to our last panelist, Charanjit Attra. He is the CFO of State Bank of India. This, I believe, is the biggest public sector bank or in this country.
The biggest bank.
Good. So over to you, sir. And I know you wanted to also talk about the role from a financial services sector in how we can become bigger champions. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sanjay, and good evening, everyone. I would like to thank IFAC and ICAI for giving me this opportunity to speak. Sorry for my voice, it's been bad in the last couple of days. You know, a couple of years back, when we were discussing about sustainability, I thought the role of the CFO, particularly in the financial services sector, and I've always been a part of the financial services sector, would be limited to just reporting certain statements in the financial statements or in the annual report. As I started delving more into it, and I really figured out myself that actually CFOs can be game changers. And the change that we are speaking about from the CFO to the CVO, the Chief Value Officer, can really, CFOs can play a great role. I won't say leading, because there has to be someone to lead it, but CFOs typically can influence like a catalyst the entire changeover. And if we talk about financial services, it really starts from the planning and strategy stage, because for all the efforts which have been spoken by my colleagues here, there's sort of investment required, and for every strategy and every plan budget that is created in financial services, the CFO or the finance team has to start thinking on how can allocation can be made to lending to sectors which support sustainable activities. When I mean sustainable activities, it is both in the ESG sector, but companies who are doing it, companies who are coming out with products which help sustainability, companies in the health sector, in the renewable energy sectors, electric vehicles, etc., and so forth and so on. I think that is where the real inputs would come from. To match those lending activities or assets, as we call in the financial services books, there are borrowings available. There could be borrowings in the form of green bonds. Today, as we talk about, green bonds are even listed on foreign exchanges. There is green loans which are available. And from an ALCO perspective, interest rate concessions can be passed on. So, that if it is done at the planning and strategy stage, it actually gives a lot of impetus to all the activities. Further, there are various credit lines available by the central government and by various, multilateral and bilateral development banks, which can be used for promoting these activities carried out by various institutions and companies within the country. Obviously, somewhere where the CFO needs to talk to the CRO to bring in sustainability factors in the credit risk module, have a credit policy which supports sustainability to help fund those projects. Even internally, if I talk about operational risk or operational controls, a lot of things can be done because, as banks and financial institutions, we have a lot of outlets in the form of ATMs or branches. Solar-powered ATMs or solar-powered branches actually does save you some cost and actually also supports sustainability. That all part in the organization does helps you to do all things, and digitization. I think converting customers from manual to digitization saves a lot of paperwork. And that itself goes, just one thing that goes into development, and it gives operational efficiencies, reduce cost, makes up a sustainable world, which can, help us going forward. From an MIS perspective, and I'm getting into a little bit of accounting, but, even from a reporting or giving some reward points to, various offices, branches who are promoting sustainability. So from both external as well as internal purposes, the financial services industry can, sort of put in a great impetus to all the sustainable activities happening in the country to achieve the three goals that have been set by the Prime Minister, as mentioned by my colleagues. Even, when we talk about CFOs as chief value officers, even from a personal life basis, even in your family, I believe sustainability has to start from there. We need to inspire people because people get inspired easily rather than convinced. So doing small things, like stopping use of plastic or, single-use plastic particularly, and doing things which really inspire people to continue with that. And if everybody thinks about saving, conserving nature and you not using certain things with harm nature, it will do a lot of good. So I believe financial services, particularly the CFO role, needs to influence, if not lead, work as a catalyst in actually promoting the entire sustainability activities in an organization. Over to you, Sanjay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm picking a trend. And the general trend is we can do it. But what I'm also picking from the different conversations I've heard is there are 4 dimensions that every finance function and CFO should consider when we're looking at sustainability. Sustainability is really about creating impact linked to purpose. So the first dimension is what are you doing as a function? The second is really what are you doing as a company? The third is really what is happening to your clients. What impact are you creating to your clients? And finally, everybody here spoke about your impact on the society, which is the 4 dimensions. So without taking much time, we have a few more minutes left. I'm going to add a quick question to some of my colleagues, and I'm going to start with Bikash. Bikash, we've heard about so many demands. You are a champion from your organization perspective. But clearly as a CFO, how do you take away resources? Resources are very, very limited. And those champions who can drive sustainability are even more few, from a global perspective. So how do you as a CFO practically align strategy, resources, create the influence, engage the CEO, engage the board, and really drive purposeful success? What was unique about your strategy?
Yeah, so thanks, Sanjay, for the question. And I think this will be applicable to many of the organizations. So today, there are regulators and investors who are asking the organizations to look at the sustainability and reporting. However, still we feel that in the organization, most of the employees, including the business unit, have not fully understood sustainability, ESG, and the impacts that it has. What I personally practice is probably I'm trying to build a culture within my team where I communicate to my team that we have inherited this world not from our forefathers, but we have borrowed it from our children. So this is one theme that I'm trying to develop within my team and my influence. The second I will say is that it is also important to understand that the organizational purpose, which we call it big P, aligning it with the individual's purpose, which is a small p. Probably a decade ago, I will also admit that probably I didn't have the understanding of the purpose of the organization or the sustainability. But now that we have understood, it's absolutely important that my small p should be well aligned with the bigger P of the organization. So when at the time of recruitment, we are also trying to see whether that alignment exists or not. If the alignment is not there, as a manager, as a CFO, I'm going to struggle to implement that. However, we still have people who are the existing people. How do I align that? So the only way I can probably try to align them and then get the resources is in terms of regular communication with them, explaining them what are the changes. We have also started driving the management incentives. We are trying to link it with some of the sustainability KPIs. We have created a cross-functional collaboration team called Functional Leadership Council, FLC, where some of these agendas are also being driven. So I think some of these initiatives which we are doing, which helps bringing the alignment at the organization level, and then we are able to align our strategy with the long-term goals, and then seek the resources, because resource allocation will follow the strategy. So once the strategy is right and it's a long-term, then resource allocation will not be an issue.
Fantastic. So aligning the small p to the big P. Thank you. Rachel, you want to add something from your perspective?
Thank you, Sanjay. I think it's all about demonstrating a win-win for everybody. And I know people are really busy, but a lot of the younger people at our organisation just doing things on the side of their desk, really, to help us achieve our goals. I think what was really interesting for the board to capture a lot of their attention, we have many people from financial organisations here, but in my country, in Australia, and I know in others around the world, is that the banks are actually giving you a discount on your borrowings if you're showing that you're green. And so that's a win-win. The board then gets on board very quickly when they see that there's tangible savings from this. Management too. But I think it's the people that want to be proud of the organisation that they work with are prepared to give their time to assist in the data collections and the reporting. And I think demonstrating that win-win is critical to the success of sustainability.
Thank you, Rachel. Raj, you want to add something to that?
Yeah. So I think today the challenge that CFOs are facing is that, how to inculcate the mindset, the sustainability mindset. Obviously, there are many stakeholders across the organization for sustainability. But if someone has to take the mantle, I think the CFOs are best suited. We are the custodians for reporting. We are the custodians for the data that generate. So we have done it quite well over the years. Now I think the mantle on us to implement and establish a simple yet efficient and transparent system for sustainability. Most of the cases, sustainability decisions are taken and sustainability is thought later. It is not like, it cannot be like that. Whenever you're evaluating a plan, evaluating decisions to implement or purchase of assets or mergers acquisition, you have to keep sustainability in mind. If you're not doing that, then I think you're missing a big picture. And I think the CFOs are suited for these roles best. Thanks.
Thank you. Charanjit, you have additional remarks?
Just one thing I want to add. I think the key is creating awareness across the organization. And I think all my panelists have spoken about that. And that is where the real challenge, the other challenge from senior management or the board perspective will be, particularly for financial services, would be optimum use of capital and how much of the capital do you attribute to sustainable activities and how much to business profitability. So there has to be an optimum use, and that is where the CFOs will play a key role in saying how, without impacting the ROI or ROE, you're able to get the sustainability activities done.
Good. I was expecting by now to see some questions on the Slido. I don't know if you have any quick one or two questions. I'm told you can put them on the app so we can see them. But I've really found this whole discussion and dialogue very exciting. We've not only had great insights, but I think a lot of encouragement also to say we are absolutely, the function of choice when it comes to driving sustainability. By the way, there's no many functions in an organization other than the CEO and the CFO who have the single largest coverage on the business. There's not many other functions that have that kind of strength, that kind of trust, but that kind of opportunity also. So I think it's a great time to optimize on that. Now, before I make the last comments, I think it'd be nice to see if our friend Sanjiv Mehta ji has any final comments for us. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thanks, Sanjay. First, compliments on the way you have moderated the session. You do a good job of thinking on your feet.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll just do a couple of reflections. I think it's very important to understand that sustainability cannot be on the edges of the organization. It cannot be an afterthought. It cannot be an appendix. And the best way I would say is, every organization looks for growth and every organization looks to innovate. I'll give you what should be the sweet spot of innovation in the future. I'll describe it in 3 axes. Yeah, the first, of course, is meeting the unmet need of the consumers. That's where you innovate. The second is enhancing financial value. It could be reducing the costs or improving the margin. But the third axis, which will bring innovation to its sweet spot, is the sustainability impact. How do you reduce your carbon footprints? Or how do you improve your social impact? And if you start looking at it from this lens, then it becomes center stage. It becomes an integral part of your business. Every function, I don't think there is any function in the organization which doesn't have a role to play in sustainability. Let me take an outlier, say HR, for instance. HR has got a huge role to play in creating a bigger societal impact. For instance, in a developing country like ours, it's so important that we start paying people not the minimum wage which the law prescribes, but paying the living wage, which is the fair wage which needs to be paid. The second important bit is we also have to ensure that your employee base represents the population of the country. How do we ensure that the marginal sections of the society, how do we ensure that the minorities are getting an equal chance to work in an organization? And that's where equity comes in. So reducing your environmental impact, increasing your social impact has to be at the very core of your business strategy. At the end of the day, a healthy business will only be in a healthy society.
Thank you. Sanjiv, I thought I'm going to make comments, but after your comments, I'm not going to make any more comments because they're very, very powerful. And it's best when it comes from a CEO's voice. So I think for my wonderful panelists and for Sanjiv ji, please, if you can give them another applause. I'm told this is the final session, as we get to the end today. So maybe my remarks will really be, we should be proud. We should be proud what we've achieved in the last 4 days. To IFAC, to ICAI, to the World Congress of Accountants Committee, kudos. The last 4 days and the few days before and the few days to come are nothing short of a miracle. We've just come from a pandemic. Many of us have never seen gatherings like this. I know this phrase in India, they use Atiti Devo Bhava. It's been exceptional. The color, the kindness, the hospitality, the flavors, the fun, and certainly the knowledge that we've achieved in the last few days has been exceptional. I don't know how we're going to package it and share our learnings. I just want to say to the people of India as I get off, and I'm from Uganda, and fortunately an Indian also, that in Hindi they say, वो दिल ही क्या जो आपको मिलने की दुआ ना करे. This is for India. वो दिल ही क्या जो आपको मिलने की दुआ ना करे. आपसे मिलकर हम जुदा हो जाए, ऐसा तो खुदा भी ना करे. Thank you very, very, very much. And with that, we end. Thank you all.
Much for that exciting plenary session. We like to extend thank you to each one of you. I'd like to invite CA Sushil Goyal, respected Central Council member ICI, to please step on the stage and felicitate CA Sanjiv Mehta. Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director, Hindustan Unilever. I'd like to request CA Rajendra Kumar to please come on stage and present a token of gratitude to Mr. Sanjay Rughani, Chair, International Federation of Accountants, PAIB Advisory Group, and CEO and Managing Director with Standard Chartered Bank, Uganda. May I invite CA Srinivas Kothaji, Central Council Member, ICI. CA Chandrasekharji, kindly do the honors of presenting a token of gratitude to Ms. Rachel Grant. Thank you for doing the honor. So that was the session on Chief Value Officers, how we can champion an integrated mindset to drive sustainable value creation. Thank you very much. A group photograph for posterity and a beautiful memory of the 21st edition of World Congress of Accountants. I'm asking everyone, are you creating memories for a lifetime? So why don't you share some of your experiences then? Did you get a chance to go to the exhibition, play different sports zone activities? Anyone who would like to give feedback? When you talk about communication, there are 5 important elements: sender, receiver, message, medium, and feedback. So as we are almost some time away from the valedictory session, and the good news is that the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis ji, will be with us. He's also been the Chief Minister of Maharashtra from 2014 through 2019. So we will have that in just a bit. Before that, renowned film actor Anupam Kher is going to join us, and he will tell us about positive thinking. So that's going to be also an attraction. And like I mentioned, the Prince Dance Group is waiting behind the wings. So we will go to them also in just a bit. But did you play sports zone, cricket, football down at the exhibition hall? What was your feedback doing all these activities?
Yeah, I think it was a really amazing experience because networking with international delegates and playing, I think they both combined together is really one of adding the cherry on the cake.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone got that? Yes, please.
First of all, congratulations. I've been hearing you. You are communicated so well. Thank you so much. Now, talking about Yeah, just a quick dig because I see Mr. Atul has briefed you. Is that I went down, and since I'll be going to Qatar for the finals, I thought I should try my hand in the football and practice as the great footballers did, 1, 2, 3, 4 at random, which I did. Thank you so much.
Okay. So you are going to Qatar for the finals? When is the final scheduled?
18th of November is the finals. I live in Dubai. I go on the 17th, see the finals, and come back on the 19th.
Sir, many of us are envious of you, but take your pick. Which two teams will go in the finals?
Simple. I have been supporting Argentina from 2014. I want them there, but I see Brazil is also up to the mark.
Okay, Argentina versus Brazil. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to thank the International Chartered of Accountants of India for having a phenomenal event like this. And thank you, IFAC, and all of the speakers who were wonderful.